The breaking point. The stars looked different from space. Captain Marcus Reed knew this well after 3 years commanding the research vessel Odyssey. Humanity had finally reached beyond its own solar system, sending ships to nearby stars to learn what existed beyond our cosmic neighborhood. These were humanity's first real steps into the galaxy. Marcus stood on the bridge of his ship, studying the main view screen. His crew of 28 moved efficiently around him, checking readings and speaking in professional tones. The Odyssey wasn't large or fancy, but it was a solid ship with a dedicated crew. "Captain," called Olivia from her sensor station, "I'm detecting an unusual energy signature approaching our position." Marcus moved to her station. Olivia Nakamura was the finest sensor specialist in the fleet. If she said something was unusual, it warranted attention. "What have you got, Lieutenant?" Olivia pointed to her display. "This energy pattern, I've never encountered anything like it. It's massive and approaching rapidly." Before Marcus could respond, the bridge lights flickered. The main screen went dark momentarily, then reactivated to reveal something that chilled Marcus's blood. A ship. No, not just a ship, a behemoth. At least 20 times larger than the Odyssey, its hull was midnight black and shaped like an elongated pyramid with jagged edges. It moved without any detectable propulsion system, without any visible emissions that their sensors could identify. "What is that?" whispered Dr. Patel, the ship's medical officer. No one had an answer. Despite years of searching, humanity had never encountered alien life before. "Open communications," Marcus ordered. "All frequencies, all formats." Lieutenant Carver at Communications tried to transmit their standard greeting message. No response. "Sir?" Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Genuine fear. "Full reverse, get us out of here." The Odyssey turned and its engines fired, pushing the ship away from the massive object. For a moment, Marcus thought they might escape. Then the ship shuddered. The engines screamed in protest, but the Odyssey didn't move forward. Instead, it began sliding backward toward the black vessel. "We're caught in some kind of tractor field," shouted Jameson, the chief engineer. "The engines can't break free." Marcus watched helplessly as his ship was pulled toward the alien vessel. The black ship opened like a massive maw, revealing a glowing interior. The Odyssey was drawn inside, and the opening sealed behind them. Emergency. Lights activated, bathing the bridge in crimson. "Everyone stay calm," Marcus said, though his own heart raced. "We don't know their intentions. They might be peaceful." The ship trembled again. A strange hissing sound filled the air. Marcus detected a sweet scent, and his eyes grew heavy. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was a section of the wall dissolving away, and tall insectoid figures moving through the opening. Marcus awoke with a pounding headache, lying on a cold metal floor in a room with no windows. The walls emitted a faint blue glow that seemed to come from the material itself. His uniform was gone, replaced by a simple gray jumpsuit. Around his neck was a heavy metal collar. He sat up slowly, fighting waves of dizziness. He wasn't alone. 20 other humans were in the room with him, all wearing identical gray jumpsuits and metal collars. Some he recognized from his crew, others were strangers. "Captain," a voice said. Marcus turned to see Jameson sitting against a wall nearby. "You're awake." "What happened? Where are we?" "We're on the alien ship," Jameson replied. "They took the whole crew. I think there are people from other Earth vessels too." Before Marcus could ask more questions, one of the walls simply vanished. Standing there were the aliens. They stood at least 7 feet tall with 6 limbs, 4 arms and 2 legs. Their bodies were covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors like oil on water. Their heads resembled those of praying mantises, with large compound eyes and small, constantly moving parts around what might have been mouths. One alien stepped forward. It wore a device on its upper left arm. When it spoke, the device translated its clicks and whistles into flat, emotionless English. "Stand when you're masters. Enter," it said. No one moved. The alien pressed something on a small device it held. Suddenly, the collar around Marcus's neck burned with excruciating pain. He fell to his knees, gasping. Around him, The other humans were experiencing the same agony. "Stand when your masters enter," the alien repeated. Fighting through the pain, Marcus forced himself to his feet. The others did the same. As soon as they were all standing, the pain stopped. "Better," the alien said. "You learn quickly for simple animals." "We're not animals," Marcus said, his voice stronger now. "We're human beings. We have rights." The pain came again, worse this time. Marcus bit his tongue to keep from screaming. The taste of blood filled his mouth. "Tools do not speak unless asked a question," the alien said. "You are property of the Krellnar Dominion now. You will work, you will obey, or you will die." The pain stopped. Marcus remained standing, though. His legs shook with the effort. "I am Overseer First Class," the alien said. "You will address me as Master. You will now be evaluated for your usefulness." Over the next few hours, the humans were taken one by one into another room. When they returned, they looked shaken. When Marcus's turn came, he was led into a clinical white room where 3 aliens waited. They didn't speak to him. They examined him with instruments that sometimes caused pain. They took samples of his blood, hair, even scraping cells from inside his cheek. They tested his strength by making him lift increasingly heavy objects until he couldn't anymore. They tested his intelligence with puzzles of growing complexity. Through it all, they spoke to each other in their clicking language, not bothering to translate. They treated him like a farmer might examine livestock he was considering purchasing. When they finished, they marked his jumpsuit with a symbol in their language, then returned him to the holding room. This continued for days. More humans were brought in. Some Marcus recognized from news reports as crews from other Earth ships. All wore the same vacant expressions, the same gray jumpsuits, the same metal collars. From fragments of conversation he overheard, Marcus learned that the Krellnar had struck Earth swiftly and decisively. Millions of humans had already been taken. The Krellnar viewed humans as nothing more than clever animals, useful for labor throughout their vast empire. On the 6th day, the humans were divided into groups based on the markings on their jumpsuits. Marcus watched as his people were taken away one by one. Dr. Patel gave him one last desperate look before she was led through a doorway. Olivia tried to run back to the group, and was immediately dropped by the pain from her collar, then dragged away unconscious. Finally, only Marcus and Jameson remained from the original Odyssey crew, along with about 30 strangers. "Listen to me," Marcus whispered to Jameson as they waited their turn. "This isn't the end. Remember who we are, what we've survived as a species. Don't let them break you." Jameson's eyes were dull with pain and fear, but he nodded. "What are you thinking, Captain?" Marcus looked around to ensure no Krellnar were watching. "They think we're animals. That's their mistake. The wall vanished again. A new overseer entered. "Mining unit, follow," it ordered. As Marcus and Jameson were led away with the others, Marcus caught Jameson's eye. A silent understanding passed between them. The Krellnar had studied human biology but had completely misunderstood human psychology. They didn't comprehend human resilience, ingenuity, or our capacity for both cooperation and calculated vengeance when pushed too far. They didn't understand that calling humans slaves was just the beginning of their end. As they were loaded onto a transport ship bound for some distant mining world, Marcus made a promise to himself. He would survive. He would find a way to fight back. And someday, the Krellnar would regret the day they ever came to Earth. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The Empire Falls 3 years had passed since Earth fell to the Krellnar Dominion. 3 years of pain, hard labor, and careful observation. Marcus had been transferred between 5 different mining operations, each worse than the last. Now he worked in the engine rooms of a massive Krellnar warship called the Subjugator. The name brought a bitter smile to his face. The Krellnar favored names that demonstrated their power, never realizing how much humans despised subjugation, or how dangerous that hatred could become. Marcus's job was simple but brutal. Clean the enormous engines that powered the ship. The work was scorching hot and the air was saturated with chemicals that scorched his lungs. His hands were covered in burns and cuts that never fully healed. The Krellnar didn't care if their slaves were injured as long as they could still work. "Move faster, Tool," ordered a Krellnar overseer, clacking its mandibles together. Marcus kept his eyes down and increased his pace. He had learned when to resist and when to comply. Today called for compliance. He had more important matters to attend to than fighting with an overseer. The work shift lasted 14 hours. When it finally ended, Marcus and the other engine room workers were marched to the feeding area. The food was a tasteless gray paste containing just enough nutrients to keep a human body functioning, but nothing more. Marcus ate quickly, not wasting time. As he finished, someone bumped into him. It was Jameson. After 3 years, Jameson looked different, thinner, with gray streaks in his hair despite being only 36. But his eyes still held the same sharp intelligence they'd had on the Odyssey. "Waste management needs assistance," Jameson said loudly for the benefit of any Krellnar monitors. "You've been reassigned for 2 hours." Marcus nodded and followed. This wasn't unusual. Slaves were frequently redistributed to different tasks as needed. The Krellnar didn't care which human did what job as long as the work was completed. They walked through the enormous ship's corridors. The subjugator was one of the largest vessels in the Krellnar fleet, with 22 levels and capacity for thousands of Krellnar troops. It also utilized approximately 450 human slaves for all the dirty, dangerous work the Krellnar considered beneath them. When they reached a service tunnel where Krellnar never ventured, Jameson stopped. "Did you get it?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Marcus glanced around to confirm they were alone, then reached into a hidden pocket he had sewn into his jumpsuit. He withdrew a small metal object that resembled a broken engine component. But it wasn't broken. Marcus had constructed it piece by piece over many weeks. "Does it work?" Jameson asked. Marcus nodded. "I tested it on myself yesterday. It blocks the collar signal for about 40 seconds. Jameson smiled, a hard, determined expression, not one of happiness. "That's enough time. Natalia says she's ready too." Natalia Volkov had been a biochemist before the Krellnar invasion. Now she worked in medical waste disposal, quietly collecting substances that could be used as sedatives or poisons. "How many people do we have now?" Marcus asked. 37, Jameson replied. "All have mastered the pain control techniques. All are prepared to move when given the signal." The pain control techniques had been Jameson's discovery. The collars functioned by causing intense pain when a human disobeyed. But Jameson had found that with practice a human mind could dissociate from the pain. It didn't eliminate the pain, but it allowed a person to think and act even while suffering. It wasn't easy and not everyone could manage it, but those who could possessed a weapon the Krellnar didn't know existed. "And the ship systems?" Marcus asked. Jameson's smile widened. "Hiroshi says he can do it. He needs 8 minutes at a control panel, but once he's in, he can seal off sections of the ship and regulate the atmospheric systems." Hiroshi Tanaka had been a computer security specialist before the Krellnar came. He'd spent 3 years studying the ship while working as a maintenance cleaner. The Krellnar never worried about slaves learning their technology. Why would they? In their minds, humans were just clever animals. They didn't expect animals to comprehend complex systems. That was their greatest mistake. "We move in 2 days, Marcus said, "when we dock at Station Gamma. Security will be focused on the station, not on us." Jameson nodded. "I'll inform the others. 1 tap for yes, 2 for no." They had developed a simple tapping code to communicate. 1 tap on a wall or floor meant yes, 2 meant no. 3 rapid taps signaled danger. It was basic but effective. The Krellnar never noticed or cared when slaves tapped on things. They heard footsteps. Quickly, Jameson pretended to be showing Marcus how to repair a waste pipe. A moment later, a Krellnar technician walked past, barely glancing at them. Slaves fixing things was normal, nothing noteworthy. When the technician was gone, Marcus concealed the signal blocker back in his hidden pocket. "We only get 1 chance at this," he said. "If we fail, we won't." Jameson interrupted. "Everyone understands what's at stake." What was at stake was far more than just their lives. It was humanity's future. In 3 years, the Krellnar had abducted millions of humans from Earth, distributing them across dozens of worlds and ships as slaves. If Marcus and the others could seize this ship, they could begin fighting back. They could start freeing other humans. They could demonstrate to the Krellnar that enslaving humans had been the worst mistake in their long history. The next day passed slowly. Marcus performed his duties and kept his head down. He managed to exchange brief words with Natalia when their paths crossed in a corridor. "Medical bay is prepared," she whispered as she passed. "The ventilation system will distribute the sedative to the Krellnar quarters." Marcus gave a slight nod. Natalia was brave. She had lost her entire family when the Krellnar first attacked Earth. She had nothing left to lose, which made her both dangerous and invaluable. That night, a young human named Victor died in the engine room. He had been worked too hard for too long, and his heart simply stopped. The Krellnar overseer ordered the body taken to waste disposal. To the Krellnar, a dead slave was merely broken equipment. As Marcus watched Victor's body being dragged away, something hardened within him. Victor had been just 19 years old. He should have had his entire life ahead of him. Instead, he died, cleaning alien engines treated as less than nothing. That night, Marcus gathered his core group: Jameson, Natalia, Hiroshi, and Diego. Diego Martinez had been a chef before the Krellnar arrived. Now he worked in food preparation and had been collecting sharp implements that could serve as weapons. They met in a small maintenance space between walls where the Krellnar never went. "Victor's death changes things," Marcus said. "We move tomorrow, not in 2 days." "But the ship won't be docked," Hiroshi objected. "Security will be heightened." "Security is always watching the outside," Marcus replied. "They never anticipate danger from within, from slaves." He looked at each of them in turn. These people had endured hell. They were thin, scarred, and exhausted. But in their eyes, Marcus saw something the Krellnar had never understood about humans: unbreakable determination. "They think we're animals," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But they've never witnessed what happens when humans decide that mere survival isn't enough, when we decide that freedom is worth dying for." Jameson nodded. "I can distribute the signal blockers to 35 people by morning. That's all. We need to begin." Natalia held up a small vial of clear liquid. "This goes into the ventilation system. It won't put them all to sleep, but it will make them sluggish and confused. It will help." Diego revealed a piece of metal he had sharpened to a deadly point. "We're ready." Marcus looked at them all and felt, for the first time in 3 years, a spark of hope. "Tomorrow," he said, "we reclaim our future." Morning arrived too quickly. Marcus had barely slept, his mind constantly reviewing the plan, identifying problems, formulating solutions. By the time the lights brightened in the slave quarters, he was already awake and prepared. The Krellnar guards arrived, as they always did, clicking and whistling at the humans to get up. Marcus stood with his head lowered, playing the role of the broken slave. Inside, his heart pounded with fear and anticipation. Today, everything would change one way or another. At the morning meal, Jameson passed by Marcus's table and discreetly dropped something small into his hand. The signal blocker. Marcus slipped it into his hidden pocket without looking at it. Around the room, he observed other small exchanges taking place. Their core team was distributing the devices to the 35 people they had selected for the first wave. Each person had been chosen carefully. They were the strongest, the smartest, or the most determined. They were people who could continue fighting even when circumstances deteriorated. And circumstances would deteriorate. Marcus harbored no illusions about that. After the meal, the slaves went to their workstations. Marcus and 5 others went to the engine room. The large Krellnar overseer was already there, moving about on its 6 legs, verifying that everything was functioning correctly.